Hello and welcome to That's Just Wild. With me, wildlife presenter and naturalist Steve Backshaw.
Me, wildlife biologist and filmmaker Lizzie Daly.
And me, environmental journalist Sarah Roberts.
The podcast all about nature, wildlife, and how I once drank the spit of a whole village.
Wait, hang on a minute, what? I was
I'm not
about to
surprised.
lead with, of course you did, but what? Even for you, Steve, that's a bit far, surely.
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard of this, but there are several kinds of alcohol that are traditionally fermented using spit. So it used to be that way with sake in Japan, but it is still very much the way in Panama and Brazil with certain kinds of grain alcohol, which the people will chew, and they all chew it together. And then the enzymes like amylase in their spit start to break it down and start getting it to ferment. They chew it, they spit it into a cup, it ferments, it turns into alcohol, and then you drink it. And it is quite, I mean, it is a post-COVID nightmare, and it's pokey, but you can't say no. It's one of those ones where you literally have to drink someone's spit.
I mean, I do think of drinking sometimes as a bonding experience, but I mean, that's like a whole nother level.
It is one of those things that afterwards you kind of think to yourself, I bet they're all sitting around going, and then we told him that it ferments with us. And everyone just laughing their heads off.
Did anyone else drink it or just you in that situation?
I mean, actually, retrospectively, I can't remember. Maybe it was just me.
Was it bubbly and lumpy and warm and exactly
warm,
how you imagine it?
Yes.
Oh.
Anyway, listen, the three of us are in three completely different countries. So tell us, what have you guys been up to this week?
I'm currently sat in the hot and humid Sri Lanka. Don't feel sorry for me. I've literally, as of yesterday, finished a shoot. This is a project which is looking at human and elephant conflict across the country. And every time I come here, I fall more in love with the people and the place. And a lot of people don't realise, but the conflict rates here between humans and elephants are the highest seen anywhere in the world. On average, there's around one bull elephant killed every single day because of this crop raiding, which is really shocking. And there's people on the ground that are doing everything they can to try and protect and help release orphaned elephants and abandoned elephants back into the wild. Having a way of coexisting here is kind of not yet been established. It's super complex, the issue, and the people are being just as affected as the elephants, but it's a massive topic. Anyway, enough from me.
What about you, Sarah? You're in France, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm having a lovely time.
France!
Hey?
Show us your French.
Je voudrais deux chocolatines, s'il vous plaît. I'm getting by, all right?
Et le songe est dans l'arbre.
Yeah, I'm just visiting friends and being humbled by the ocean, trying to surf out here.
Forget you're a big surfer, Sarah.
But no, having a lovely time and learning about oysters in great depths and how to look after them, because my friend is in the oyster world. Did you know every month that ends in an R is apparently the best month to eat oysters? Except if you're me and you don't particularly like them anyway, but we'll keep that on the down low. Steve, how about you? What are you up to?
Well, I've mostly been doing the PR for my Deadly Live tour, which is coming at the end of October, my big arena tour. Incidentally, it looks like we're going to sell out the O2. More than 10,000 people.
No
Get
way.
that. But so I've been bouncing all over the country, but coming back to Cornwall and going out and doing lots of paddling. And one of the coolest things about kayaking out here at the moment is we're getting lots and lots of by the wind sailors and Portuguese man o' war. I actually got to be on the beach with my little ones in front of their first ever Portuguese man o' war. They lost their minds.
Oh my God. Is this all from the storm? Because the last few weeks here, we've had loads washing up. It's almost been like one every 3 or 4 steps.
Wow.
Is it just from that bad storm that we had going through?
You've got to think that it could be. I put it up on social media, actually, and quite a lot of people said, we kind of see them every now and again. But we did have like 2 weeks of solid westerlies, which would kind of lead me to believe that, places like the Azores at this time of year, they're super common. They would have been, just by the nature of that wind blown in towards our shores. But yeah, I've never seen anything like the amount of them that we're getting right now, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway, listen, we are in the midst of a particularly fine season. So we thought that today the theme for our podcast should be autumn. Actually, first of all, when would you guys think that the kind of classification of when autumn is here in the UK? What would you kind of imagine in your heads that autumn kind of is season-wise?
Well, it's when you drink your first chai latte, no? if you were to ask a Gen Zer.
Oh my gosh, that is such a hipster response.
I'm a year-round chai latte, so I must be in like constant autumn.
An oat milk chai latte, just to add to the hipstery.
I mean, I was asking that expecting a serious response. Seriously.
You just ordered my drink for me, Lizzie.
Oh, okay. So listen, the poetic response is that autumn has a different heat because the heat of summer will ripen an apple and the heat of autumn will turn it to cider. That's the poetic response. But actually, when I looked up what the classification of autumn was, I was quite surprised because it's supposed to start on Lammas Day, which is the 1st of August and run through to Halloween. I mean, I think August is just like still full on summer, but apparently not.
Yeah.
Apparently that is autumn. Anyway, yesterday I was in the fabulous Lost Gardens of Heligan here in Cornwall, and it really does feel like autumn has, taken it in full storm. The leaves everywhere are turning into glorious orange and red colours and starting to fall down and cover the ground. The light has a different quality about it. It feels like a season for poetry and emotion and kind of contentment as the cold winters approach.
I actually think autumn might be one of my favourite seasons.
One of your favourite seasons. There's
And
four
she
of
only
them.
thinks
Come
she's
on.
not
It's one of
100%.
four. It's one of four, guys.
In
No,
all
because-
seriousness,
No, wait, guys, for real. Because I can't pick. I really struggle every time I go into a new season. I'm like, no, this is it. But autumn is particularly special because of those golden, kind of long golden evenings that you get. It's an amazing season for photography. It's a time where I probably had some of my favourite wildlife encounters in the UK. Everything from, in the Montrose Basin, pink-footed geese coming in by the thousand to just photographing, barn owls in my local reserve near Cardiff. So it is a wonderful time of year. And also it's kind of like a bit of a reflection season, isn't it? We've had a lovely, vibrant year. Everyone's kind of preparing for the long, dark, very miserable season ahead, right?
and when you say preparing, they're getting in those last gardening days, because I don't know if you can hear that in the background, but there's a lovely old lady next door who's desperately trying to get through a garden with the last full sunny day that's forecast for the next week here in France. For me, I think autumn highlights are those Halloween moments, cornfields growing out everywhere. Obviously the colours of the trees, though, surely is one of the biggest highlights. If you've got somewhere where you have those forests nearby and you see those beautiful reds and the orange. I mean, it's in America. It's like people travel to go to specific areas and see that, and travel a long way, don't they?
Yeah, well, I mean, kind of anywhere in northern latitudes where you've got forests and you get those incredible changes of colour. Scotland at this time of year is utterly breathtaking. Japan as well. Going out to sit under the reddening maple trees in Japan at this time of year is like it's a national institution, and those actually came from Canada. They were exported as a kind of national gift from Canada, as far as I understand it, and now they're an institution. They're everywhere across Japan. People go out and they'll sit under the trees and they'll have barbecues, and it is an absolute time for celebration. But much as we, I think, traditionally see autumn as a time for the kind of getting together all of our stores that we're going to need for the winter, that's exactly the same for animals as well. And it's probably triggered by the changing in length of the days and by the shortening days and the lack of sunlight.
In that change, do the animals just do behavioural changes, or are there other things that daylight triggers in the animals?
It depends, doesn't it? I mean, for a lot of animals, particularly those that are going to be going into true hibernation, they need to lay down fat reserves, and they need to do it urgently because they are going to be expending enormous amounts of energy, probably not eating at all for months on end. So right now they're just filling their faces. They are absolutely stuffing themselves, and that is a critically important time for them.
What about the coat colours, though?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, that is a really good one. Yeah, so a big example of one of the changes that happen at this time of year is how some animals change their coats from the brown coat they would have had in the summer to an all-white coat that they might have in the winter. Can any of you guys think of pop quiz? A few animals that do that?
Arctic fox.
Very nice.
Ptarmigans and mountain hares in Scotland.
Yeah, very true. The stoat or ermine.
You went to go and film those, didn't you, Lizzie, the hares?
Yeah, I tried to. I went up to Glencoe and tried to. I can't ski. So I put on skis and tried to find some mountain hares in the highs of Glencoe. What am I doing?
Please tell me that footage exists of that.
It does, but it
Your
won't see the
all
light of
action
day.
Lara Croft girl action image
Terrible.
completely ruined by staggering about on a pair of skis. I have to see this.
It was terrible. And I was with this cameraman, Brodie Hood, who's an absolute cameraman mountain wizard. And he's like literally cartwheeling across the mountain in the snow. And I'm just like doing the whole shuffle sideways up there. It was terrible. It's like sliding downhill. Anyway, we move. Mountain hares are a great example of that kind of change. And they really camouflage themselves so well, don't they, in the winter months, Steve?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, actually, just about all animals are going to change their coat from the summer to the winter, even if that's just from a really light pelage that they have for the those warmer months into a much thicker one that's going to take them through into the winter. But there's about 20 different species that will have that complete change from brown or grey to white, and it's for obvious reasons. It's for camouflage. So both to evade their predators and also to be able to, in the case of things like the Arctic fox, more effectively sneak up on their prey. And those changes, they might seem to be tied to the arrival of the snow or to the arrival of the cold, but scientists have given absolute precise evidence to show that it's not. It is tied to the sun and to the length of the day.
Which is slightly awkward though, isn't it, when it comes to climate?
Well, yes.
So, I mean, just like a lot of animals, and we actually are linked, day to day with the rhythms, light and darkness, and our rhythms and our activity budgets and how we kind of behave or feel more sleepy is dictated by that light. And it's all to do with the production of melanin. It's the same throughout the year. Well, these biological year-long cycles also can be seen in a lot of species. It's called the circannual rhythm. So these hormones rise and fall to reflect the different seasons, and that can really help with some of the behaviours that Steve's already talked about, but and then molting and antler growth and breeding behaviour and all sorts of things. So what is interesting is that what's happening with a lot of species that really depend on this coat change because of camouflage from predators. Suddenly they may have a white coat in a time where there isn't much snow, or suddenly the function of having these different coats that also serves a purpose for camouflage from these predators actually works against them. And as we're seeing kind of climate change and become more unpredictable throughout the seasons and through these shifts because of this, then that's having a direct impact on the survivability of species. So mountain hares that I've mentioned there are also, feeling the pressure by not being able to keep up with these shifts in the environment, and that's going to have detrimental effects on how they're predated in their populations.
You can see how it would have a very quick effect on some species. The stoat or ermine particularly, you've got this relatively small animal with an electric metabolism that needs to be feeding and hunting all the time to keep itself going, and if it was only a couple of days difference between having the snow and the white coat that fitted it and still being in a green and brown environment and being bright white, and suddenly everything's going, look at that, there's a white stoat over there, quick guys, run. I mean, it really wouldn't take much for there to be 3-4 days that the stoat can't eat, and that's it, done, dusted.
It's one of those things that we take for granted. We're just like, oh, brilliant, a warmer summer, or a Indian summer, we all want it. But for the animals to have a change outside of the norm, it could take a big hit on their population eventually, couldn't it?
Yeah.
The biggest problem around these shifts is that they're happening so rapidly that the species that are evolving and adapting to those changes are just simply not going to be able to keep up. I think if you've ever seen an animal that's got the wrong coat for that season or environment at that time, they do stick out like a sore thumb. So as Steve says, their survivability rate just kind of absolutely plummets. And I think the scary thing about that is we don't know what those impacts are going to look like, because year to year, those seasons are becoming more and more unpredictable as well, in terms of, we might have actually a really good winter, which for the mountain hares, we have had fairly large amount of snow, which matches the coat change that you see in some species that live up in the highlands. But again, it's like that's not going to be consistent, and the trends show that unpredictability and shift is just happening way too quickly. So it's a massive, massive problem. And I just wonder how we'll go on and predict those trends as we're seeing more and more change. Not to be miserable, guys.
Well, I tell you what, let's move from the misery, shall we, and talk about some of
Good.
the greatest and our favourite sights of the autumn, because there are plenty. I
Yeah.
mean, first one that springs to mind for me has got to be murmurations.
Oh,
Best time of year to see murmurations for sure.
yeah, absolutely. And if you catch like a lovely dusky evening, you have to go with good weather, don't you? I don't want to be a snob or anything, but if you're going to see a spectacle like a murmuration or the pink-footed geese, I will also flag the Montrose Basin up in Scotland as one of the best spectacles for seeing the geese they have a small Arctic summer, kind of small window of time, and then head down to the UK for the winter, and they stream in over this beautiful pinky sky, and it's the best. So if you can go on a nice, calm, dusky evening.
She says as a filmmaker there, doesn't she? You want the golden hour if you're going to go and film these animals.
Yeah, I've got to have a throw in actually for one of my buddies who has just given me a housewarming present for our new house, which is a picture that he took of a murmuration, and it is a murmuration that he has managed to capture perfectly so that it is the exact shape of a humpback whale. How awesome is that?
Stop.
Wow.
Yeah, so check this out.
Oh, wow, and the
Whoa.
sky
Oh my
actually looks like an ocean.
So that is a housewarming present I was given by Andy Lawrence, who is Chase the Merms on Instagram. So if you want to find out more about amazing murmurations, Chase the Merms.
That is incredible.
Isn't that epic? And then, of course, autumn is the time for fighting.
The rut.
The
Yeah.
rat. Sorry. There's a short amount of time around autumn where all the males will fight for dominance, and again, it's triggered by kind of a hormonal response, almost like establishing rights. And that ruts happen, across the UK with different species. You see it in lots of our goat species, Welsh mountain goats. I'd love to tell you more about that as well.
I'm sure you would. She's always banging on about Wales, isn't she, Sarah?
I've got
Seriously.
to put it on the map, Steve.
Are we sponsored by Visit Wales yet?
We should be. If you listen to Lizzie, then mid Wales is like the Masai Mara.
Do you know what? I'm going to stick with that, Steve, because the Welsh mountain goat rut is one of the most impressive I've ever seen. Let's have a rut off. Come on, what's been your most impressive rut?
Oh, I would say musk oxen.
Fair.
These kind of like miniature bison that thunder at each other at about 40, 50 miles an hour. They've got these big bosses on the top of their heads, and they clatter into each other. And, you can be a mile away, and not only can you hear it, but you can feel it, seriously, how they are not compressing their necks, destroying their brains. I mean, that and things like bighorn sheep, I mean, some of the chamois and things, the ibex that you get in the mountains. But I mean, just like Welsh mountain goats, the fact that they're doing it on a precipitous cliff face makes it even more impressive.
I have a question for you guys. How integral is the rut to the next genetic material in that population?
It's a classic example of how you get the best genetics to flourish, because the biggest male red deer stag, for example, is going to battle and battle and battle, and thus gain himself a harem of female, passing on an inordinate amount of genetics. But he could well die in the process. He could get himself speared. He could get utterly exhausted. He's going for an extended period of time without doing anything other than fighting in order to pass on the maximum amount of his own DNA. So yeah, you are going to get the biggest, strongest, toughest stag fathering the maximum amount of biggest, strongest, toughest offspring. So absolutely, it has a correlation.
So I've kind of set you up here, because what I wanted to talk to you about is an environmental story surrounding our red deer and our other deer populations in the UK, particularly in Scotland, because in 2023, the Scottish government opened the season for deer shooting and deer calls to all year round. And it was a very interesting time, because you had deer stalkers who were up in arms, who, again, just like you said, Steve, they're like, the rut is important. The rut ensures that we have the right genetic materials being passed on. But then also you've got to balance that with the amount of tree planting we're doing in the uplands and the reforestation. And deer aren't necessarily good for reforestation in the beginning. They like to eat the saplings. They do destroy some of the trees. So the Scottish government particularly are really, really trying to reduce their deer populations. And they've increased their cull number quite dramatically to roughly 100,000 deer each year that they want to take out the population. But it's thought to be more around 200,000 deer that are being taken out. But the rut's such an interesting thing because, like you said, how's the condition of their body during the rut?
Well, this is one of the big arguments for bringing back apex predators to Scotland. Because you're talking about a cull that is going to be killing 100,000, 200,000 red deer. One of the main arguments for bringing back an apex predator is that you don't need to cull any because the predators change the behavior of the deer. So you're talking about deer there that are devastating particular kinds of trees. The famous experiment was done in Yellowstone in America, where they brought back wolves to Yellowstone, and it completely transformed the entire landscape in a very, very quick period of time. And it wasn't necessarily just because they were killing the elk, the deer. It was because they were forcing them to keep moving. So they were constantly on the go. They weren't focusing on particular periods. And within a matter of years, the whole landscape had completely changed. And that's what a lot of people are arguing would happen in Scotland, were we to bring back small groups of wolves.
It's such a tricky thing to manage, as you say, because we're trying to step in for a predator that doesn't exist, but we're also terrified of putting the predator back in as well.
Yeah, but on that, Sarah, I mean, I think the large push for culling and where there is validity in culling of red deer, in particular in Scotland, is just the amount of kind of devastation that you see in the landscape. I always find it funny when you drive through Scotland, you're always mesmerised by the Munros and the beautiful weather and incredible lochs. It is a really dramatic country. But equally, you're met with the impacts of having overgrazing and excessive, browsing has reduced all of that wonderful habitat. And so I personally would love to see the reintroduction of wolves in the UK. I'll be honest, I'm not sure we could handle it. I think the biggest shortfall for us would be hysteria, social media taking over, misinformation about how they could help rebalance our ecosystem.
And whether we do genuinely have the space.
Very true.
And the sheep farmers, let's be honest, it would definitely take a big toll on anyone that had smaller livestock. It would be a panic. Well, even cows probably too. Yeah. But I think there is a misconception that the whole of Scotland ought to be forest. But actually we have another problem in terms of the tree planting, because a lot of it is peatland. And planting trees on peat is a little bit backwards because it damages the hydrology of this massive carbon store, which is very delicate. And it also takes a long time for those trees to even slightly offset the carbon that they'll be taking out of the ground when they damage the hydrology. But anyway, if you're interested in this topic, I have done a whole series on it about the British uplands and investigating all the pragmatisms and nuances on it. But it is complete and utter pragmatisms and nuances, isn't it? That's like the whole conservation world. It's always like a balancing act.
Yeah.
For ad-free listening, our newsletter, special deep dive episodes and members only benefits, you can subscribe to us at that'sjustwild.com.
Just going back quickly to Steve's point about kind of the different ruts. So for the red deer in particular, Steve mentioned that their condition does change quite dramatically. So the rut is linked with the photoperiods, the length of day, that daylight, the hormonal changes. You get lots of testosterone in the red deer, and they do these dramatic displays of bellowing and kind of prancing around and lots of kind of head-to-head clashes, but then also this kind of power dynamic between stags. Slightly different to musk ox and some of the other species that Steve's mentioned, where it's very much about impact and that they kind of the initial banging together. And you see that I've seen it with young bachelor herds of musk ox that are practicing. The sound of it is just phenomenal. But what's interesting about that is they're great examples of how, even though it's an incredibly energetically costly behaviour, that fighting often in a season which isn't really celebrated as being kind of full of resources and food, it's incredibly important because it's evolved, many times across species. It's a great example of convergent evolution.
One thing to chip in there's a dinosaur that may well have
There's always a
indulged
dinosaur.
in the rut. There's always a dinosaur. There is always a dinosaur. Have you heard of Pachycephalosaurus?
Just
Just then, yeah.
Heard of it. Don't know anything about it.
Pachycephalosaurus is a dinosaur that stood about as tall as I do, but looked like it had a pudding bowl on its head.
Oh, I actually think, are they in
Amazing.
Jurassic Park? Is there one in Jurassic Park that has the big lump on it? I know you hate
I hate
those
that
films.
every time I talk about
Beep, beep, beep.
dinosaurs,
Beep,
you go,
beep.
was it in Jurassic Park? Like that's a
Kick her
deal
out.
breaker.
She's out.
But for a long time, there's been this hypothesis because they've got this big dome-shaped head that they would have used it to charge into each other head to head in clattering combat, just like a musk oxen would have done. And it's really thick. Like if you go to the Oxford Museum of Natural History, they've got this incredible fossil, which is almost perfect, of a pachycephalosaur head, and it just looks like a battering ram. And so scientists have long hypothesized that that must be what it was used for. There's been a bit of questioning as to whether that is actually possible. You used to have like two bowling balls clattering into each other head to head. Could an animal even have survived that impact? But yeah, it is absolutely possible that the rut could have been going on for 100 million years, maybe even more.
Cool. I'm going to talk about Welsh mountain goats.
Okay, I'm getting settled in.
So high up in the Slate Quarry, you can find a feral population. No, you can actually find a feral population of Welsh mountain goats. Steve, have you been up there before to the Slate Quarry?
Yeah, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Isn't it amazing?
How amazing is it, guys?
It's amazing. It is it's amazing.
Amazing.
Harch iawn.
See? You
Yeah,
know
no,
more than me.
it's super cool, and the mountain goats as well. Well, tell us the story of how they came to be there, because as you say, these are feral goats.
Yeah. So they were introduced around 5,000 years ago, and they came from domesticated goats and have since just managed to thrive as now, yes, you say, a population of feral goats. But the landscape, for those who haven't been or haven't heard of it, it is super dramatic. It's up in this old slate quarry, and you've still got the remnants of this kind of mining activity where there's old slate buildings, and looking up the quarry, it's just these slabs of wet, moody slate. It looks super dramatic, and on top of that quarry, you get this small population of goats that dance around this slate like it's no problem at all. It's actually quite remarkable. So a few years ago, I wanted to try and pitch a small film to the One Show. But to do that, I just wanted to go up and see if we could go and actually see them and get some really nice shots. I was inspired by a photographer called Kevin Morgan, who has spent a lot of time up there, and he's managed to capture these incredible kind of sun going through the high mountain clouds and fog, and with just a very beautiful. Can you describe them as beautiful?
I wouldn't say beautiful. I mean, there are times when it is utterly bleak, but while there are big blank expanses of grey and black, inevitably you'll get to a peak and you'll look out on a majestic sweeping green view, and there is a majesty about them. I mean, I wouldn't say that you would call them serene or beautiful. They're
No,
more,
you're right.
I don't know, there's a darkness to them, and
There's
particularly
a
that
drama.
dark quality. Yeah, drama is the word I was
Yeah.
looking for.
And actually, the rut is the darkness and the drama, and so we went up there to try and photograph them during the rut, and it is a whole new ball game. I mean, there's males that stink of urine. Absolutely, you smell them before you see them, and the smell just gets right up in your nozzle. It's like it's honestly grim. And then there's these Welsh mountain goats fighting and rutting up in the hills. I mean, it's so aggressive that some of the males will end up pushing off the other goats, and they end up with broken legs and dying and falling down this kind of sea. So it's a really dramatic thing to see for anyone who just wants to really see that kind of a different rut, a rut with a bit of spice. Head to the Norwich Quarry in Wales. Another big highlight, of course, of the autumnal season is migration. Right, it's obviously a big part of this time of year.
I mean, it is a highlight, but I also have to say it's the thing that I see with the most amount of sadness, because so many of the wonders that we have over the summer, particularly things like the hirundines, the martins, the swallows, the swifts, and everything that comes with them, they're leaving, they're going, and the fact that they go, and you can track that departure, you can see them hammering around, filling their stomachs with flying bugs as quickly as they can. It's an incredible display, and then poof, they go, and it's like that signals, just as their arrival signals the beginning of summer, their departure is the thing that lets you know that season of growth and of flowers everywhere and loads of it's coming to an end.
This must be exactly how my mum and my friends and family feel when they see me packing my suitcase to get out at the end of summer.
She's off. She's migrating.
Yeah, that's what you think. And then the second you're gone, they're like, woohoo! Snap open the carver.
But it's the same for, you mentioned birds and swifts and insects as well are massive migrators, but salmon as well.
But this salmon runs through the summer though, doesn't it?
So it totally depends on the species of salmon and where you are. Because I think there are various different runs throughout the year. Some that go right into winter as well. In some places in North America, you have like a small run in winter of certain species.
Mm-hmm.
But this is such an integral part of most wildlife and how they're going to fatten up for winter, none more so than the big old grizzly bear. And I really, really, really wanted to touch on one of my favourite things that happens every year. Have you guys heard of Fat Bear Week?
Is that like Freshers Week?
I mean, it's a party for the bears for sure. So Fat Bear Week started really by a guy called Mike Fitz, who worked in Katmai National Park in Alaska, and he set up some trail cams around the park. He was a park ranger and he thought, oh, it's so beautiful here. I'm sure people are really going to appreciate this. So he set up some trail cams, just like you and I have done. But then he decided to live stream them. So other people who maybe couldn't get up to the park or from different parts of the world could also see those spots. And one of those spots is on a river, and it's attracted a lot of attention. And the exciting thing was that the people watching it got so invested in those bears coming back that there's all sorts of drama around it. So basically, one of the fans took a screenshot of one of the bears that they saw in springtime and re-recognised that same bear in winter. And obviously the before and after, when a bear's gone through hyperphagia and it's eaten all those salmon, they're almost unrecognisable. So there's a lot of banter around this. Have you guys seen the salmon run? I'm sure you must have been filmed it a million times, Steve. But what about you, Lizzie?
Yeah. In the Klamath River was probably the best example of the Chinook salmon run, which was amazing.
So these bears, they wake up from hibernation. There's not really much food available for them other than sedge and grass and a few berries as the summer comes. So it's only really that autumnal fish migration for the ones on the coast that allows them to put on that body fat, and to the fatter they are, the more likely they're going to survive winter. So because of the amount of banter that people were having around these bears, seeing that before and after, they started Fat Bear Week, and it's been going on for over 10 years now. And this year the winner was 32 chunk. Now, what I love about this is each of these bears are followed throughout the years, not just 1 year. They're named and they're recognised and they're followed. 32 Chunk, controversially, he is also a bit of a villain because he killed one of the cubs of the previous winner. So like the year before, he was a cub killer and everyone hated him. But then 32 Chunk broke his little jaw and everyone's like, oh no, he's going to die. He's not going to make it. But he ended up being absolutely enormous. They estimate to be over 500 kilograms. The before and after photos, absolutely wild. He got 96,350 votes from people all around the world that have got involved in Fat Bear Week. But I mean, as ridiculous as it sounds, it's such an amazing, hilarious idea of raising awareness of how important nature is and how important things like the salmon run are. Did you guys vote?
I didn't vote, but being as we're talking about Fat Bear Week, my wife has just come in with the ultimate Cornish present.
You can't reintroduce Helen as Fat Bear Week.
Oh my God.
A Cornish pasty that is bigger than my actual head. You talk about Fat Bear Week, I give you a fat back shawl.
What's in it?
This is hyperphagia in Cornwall right now, preparing.
Yeah.
That's
So
it.
I've actually worked with Mike Fitz. We've worked in Alaska with the bears
Oh,
there.
cool.
And I have a kind of close call story when we were filming at this time of year in the autumn, at the end of the salmon run with the bears. I was with Justine Evans. You guys know Justine?
Legend.
Amazing
Yes.
camera operator. She's one of my favorite people to work with in the entire world. And we found ourselves out on this kayaking trip in the fjords around Alaska. We found this waterfall, and there were 3 adult bears feeding in this waterfall, catching the salmon. And they were just literally standing there, just going, "Honk," grabbing a salmon, just shredding it, ripping the fat off from the back of the head, dropping the rest of it, wasting it, and then just taking the next one. Yeah, I mean, it was so easy for them. It was embarrassing. But then we worked out that the 3 of them, 2 of them were older young males, so they're probably around about 2 years old, and the other was the female, was their mum, and it was clearly coming to the time when she was driving them off to go and, basically, go and move out of my house. I'm sick of having you around. And so she was driving these 2 off, and she drove one of the young males off around this bay straight at us. And we were kneeling down on this very, very narrow causeway filming as this bear came just stampeding around towards us and up to within, I don't know, maybe 3 meters away from us, and just stopped there in front of us. And Justine and I were just going, "Hey, bear. Hello there, big fella. We're just filming you right now." And I mean, for a couple of seconds, it was a really intimate. He towered over us. He was absolutely massive. And then, because you could see him going, oh, I'm not sure. Do I want to eat them, or shall I just find a way around them? He couldn't climb up alongside us because we had a really precipitous, steep hillside alongside us. To the other side, we had the sea. So then eventually he went, nah, I can't be bothered. Backtracked, went all the way back around the bay to the other side to avoid coming into conflict with us. It was amazing. The next part of the story is that the 2 of us looked at each other and went, "Oh my gosh, that was proper scary." And then Justine went, "What's that?" And all of our kit was floating in the bay because we've been so focused on filming the bear, we hadn't realised that the tide had come up, and it had just carried all of our stuff away. All of our camping kit was flushed out to sea.
God.
The Pelly cases with like thousands of pounds worth of filming gear was just floating on the sea alongside us while we were face to face with an adult bear. Yeah.
Amazing.
God.
That's brilliant. There's one migration that I feel gets overlooked, and it's of the insects. And I just want to quickly talk about a bit of research that came out last year. It was conducted by a friend who I actually went to university with, Dr. Will Hawkes. He's an amazing entomologist, just a hoverfly wizard. But there's this 13-meter wide pass between France and Spain and the Pyrenees. And every year around autumn, 17 million insects migrate through this pass. I actually sent him a kind of a note before this just to ask him a few of the things that he found, and he shared so much cool information. I'll try and summarize it. Firstly, they used a malaise trap. Have either of you heard of a malaise trap?
Yeah.
No, what is it?
Sarah, if you imagine it's like a big tent, like passive trap for insects to fly into. And what was interesting about the malaise trap, it was actually apparently made by a man whose name was Malaise, but wanted to impress women. And he thought he could
With
do
all
that
the
by
insects that he'd caught.
Yeah,
Hey girls, take a look at
by
this.
creating the massive tent for collecting insects, which I feel like would work.
He knew a
in
way
that-
to a woman's heart.
100%, 17 million insects. But Will actually talks about the sound of all these insects passing through, and he said the sound was not like anything he's heard before. It was like a low drum and a flying carpet of these hoverflies, butterflies, dragonflies. He said the flies were the group that made up the biggest mass of those that were making this migration. Some as small as 2 to 3 millimeters in size, grass flies. And he also talked about how bats, which he wasn't expecting, but bats have actually changed and altered their pupping season to match this huge migration of insects and that happen in the autumn months, in particular in this tiny pass. So as a location, it's a really unique kind of site to be able to understand migrations that we don't really know too much about. And for our hoverflies and all our insects, it's such an overlooked, I think, type of migration. It's kind of this new discovery of a huge mass of insects that are making this autumnal migration. And as a result, the species that are kind of following that and adjusting their behaviours to match is just extraordinary and really cool research by Will.
That is just wonderful. I have to say I am salivating sat
I was
here.
going to say, Steve's there.
I
Steve
know,
would have loved that date.
I've already booked my flight. I'm like, get me to the Pyrenees.
Okay, should we finish on a bit of an autumnal highlight?
Yeah. So one of my favourite things to do in the autumn is going out looking for fungus. So I'm not what you would call a particularly adept forager. There's only 2 or 3 species that I know well enough and with enough confidence that I can look at them and actually think about picking them up to eat them. And I should say that for anyone out there who is thinking about this and thinking about starting from scratch, don't even consider it without, some really, really good serious help. I mean, to anyone who is considering it, have a little look online at the death cap, which is arguably the most lethal thing that we have in this country. Look up what a death cap mushroom looks like. And then look up a common wood mushroom, field mushroom, a deer cap. They're just about any mushroom looks a little bit like a death cap, and a teeny tiny amount can give you liver, kidney failure, kill you instantly. I would say that even if you're not considering foraging, going and looking at fungus just for the sheer beauty of it, a fairy parasol, which looks like something that a pixie should be carrying over their head as an umbrella, the fly agaric, the classic red and white toadstool that is so common in our iconography. Yesterday at Heligan, I was looking at this incredible teeny tiny orange fungus, which they call the ping pong bat fungus because it looks like a table tennis bat in miniature, but bright orange. Orange peel fungus, King Alfred's cakes, the incredible brackets. We get a lot of artist brackets around here, which are these bracket funguses which are on the trees. And on the underside, if you just scratch them with your finger, it leaves a perfect black mark like charcoal drawing. They are gorgeous. The amethyst deceiver, the boletes, the porcinis, the chanterelles, the chicken of the forest. I think it is the most underrated area of natural history, and now is the time to embrace it. So heading to any local forest environment, particularly ancient forests with a lot of deciduous trees, you're going to get an incredible diversity of fungus, toadstool, mushroom life, and it's amazing. And the amount of different kinds we have in this country, the fabulous names they have, it is really quite something. And now autumn is the time to do it.
Is anybody else signing up for a fungi safari with Steve?
Yes, let's do it together.
100%.
I'm going to come with my little wicker basket next time I'm in Cornwall.
Cornwall is epic for
Yeah.
mycology.
Can I also just add one more suggestion on that? Is go out at nighttime with a UV light and just see what happens. And that's all I'll say. But it adds another kind of dimension to fungi hunting, which is always great. Right, guys. I can't believe it. We've run out of time. Remember, you'll have a Q&A episode coming your way on Friday. So remember to send your questions to questions@that'sjustwild.com and we'll get to it.
That's Just Wild is an original Fresh Air production. The producers are Eva Higginbotham and Emma Crampton. Your support is really welcome. You can follow us on your favourite podcast app, leave us a review. It makes all the difference to the whole team. And for ad-free listening, our newsletter, special deep dive episodes and members-only benefits, you can subscribe to us at that'sjustwild.com.
Thanks for listening. See you next week.